Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I think we've got a great discussion ahead for you on multi-factor authentication and cyber insurance, specifically tailored today to insurance brokers and professionals. I'm Emily Gruber with Dual North America, and I'll be hosting today's discussion. During the last several minutes of today's session, our panelists will be answering questions from the chat, so please feel free to send in any questions you may have through the duration of the discussion, and we'll do our best to answer them all. Any questions we don't get to, we'll be sure to answer via email to you all after today. So with us today, we have Larry Baldino, Dual Cyber Technology and Professional Lines President, and Diego Matute, CEO of Cyphercor. Dual and Cyphercor have been working together to provide easy to access, complete MFA services to our broker partners and their clients. And today, our experts are going to go over the benefits of MFA for brokers and for policyholders, and help us all understand MFA, specifically in regards to cyber insurance coverage, a little better, and answer your questions. With that, I'd like to introduce our speakers. Larry?
Thanks, Emily, and thank you everybody for attending. Thank you, Diego, for joining me. It's really great to be here, and it's very exciting to be presenting today with somebody like Diego, and Emily is the moderator, so it's going to be a great discussion. Like I said, as Dual, well, thank you for your time, and as Dual expands our continues to expand our cyber offering, we're always committed to developing a comprehensive pre and post buying risk management platform. And I can think of no better way to start that than to develop a partnership surrounding multi-factor authentication. As we all know, multi-factor authentication is the leading topic of conversation in the insurance industry. 95% of all carriers out there require multi-factor authentication to be deployed either prior to binding or once it is bound within 30 days. Introducing Diego Matute here. He is the head of Login TC, who is our who's going to be our preferred partner going forward. MFA can be deployed quick and easy, covering all access points and very cost effective. So I'll turn it over to Diego to kind of give himself a quick introduction.
Thanks, Larry. Thank you, Emily, and thank you everyone for joining today. I'm Diego Matute. I'm the CEO and founder of Cyphercor. So we're a cybersecurity firm that builds seamless, user-friendly, secure, and well-supported multi-factor authentication solutions. Our flagship product is called Login TC. We've been in business for over 10 years. We have customers in 60 plus countries. There's been a lot of talk regarding cyber insurance and MFA in the last, say, 24 to 36 months. We're hoping through our work with Dual, we can promote why MFA helps mitigate cyber risk and help brokers and clients alike get there. So we're looking forward to the discussion on this topic.
Thank you both. We're very excited to have you both here today. So let's get started with the basics. Why is it important that insurance brokers understand and businesses implement MFA? Diego, do you want to start off with that one?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. I mean, public perception has changed a lot. You're seeing a lot more discussion about MFA than ever before. So, why is that? Well, more companies are getting attacked and having their data breached. That means, data breaches means reputational loss, the cost and time of recovery, intellectual property lost, among other things. Every year, Verizon Data releases a report called the Verizon Data Breach Investigations Report. And in 2021, they showed that 61% of data breaches involve credential data, like weak or stolen passwords. So if you think of an online internet user like yourself or those that you know, on average, an online internet user has over 3 dozen online accounts, but only uses 3 to 5 passwords. So what that means is that you're using the same password a lot. So a password breach in one place, so say you signed up one time to buy some, maybe some food for your cat at pets.com, and you had to put in a password. If that data got breached, then everywhere else you use that password is also breached. So companies that rely solely on passwords are effectively outsourcing their security to every other organization that accepts passwords from users. In the past, protection was made with firewalls. So having to be physically present to access company materials and those kind of protections. And organizations got pretty good at that. So it's a lot like if you protect your house or a castle, you use a fence, a moat, and that would keep a lot of attackers at bay. But now they're getting more sophisticated. Now what's happening is that attackers are actually going after the individuals themselves. So it's as if someone is disguised walking into your house. And so that's what account takeover is about. And account takeover is the biggest threat that organizations face today. So multi-factor authentication, what it does is add an additional layer of security to include a physical factor as part of the credential validation process. So that significantly increases the complexity of the attack for account takeover. And so how does that work? Well, I like to think of identity factors in terms of dimensions. So there are 3 dimensions of identity factors. So the first dimension are the things that you know. So you know your password, you know your mother's maiden name, the city you were born in. The second dimension are things that you have. So these are physical items in your possession, maybe your laptop, a hardware token, a smartphone, so physical things that you can touch. And then the third thing are things that you are. So these are things intrinsic to you, like an iris scan or maybe some behavioral factors. And when you add an additional dimension, you're making it that much harder for the attacker to take over your account. Just because an attacker can find a database of passwords online and steal millions of passwords doesn't mean that they can steal millions of phones. So they're just 2 fundamentally different problems. So MFA becomes a strong tool to limit account takeover.
Great, thank you, Diego. Larry, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would just add real quick from an insurance perspective. If you pour over the historical nature of all the actuarial data, you will see that MFA could, basically turn a term that I heard once that I'm stealing from a security expert, fatal car accidents into fender benders. So basically, it doesn't necessarily prevent cyber loss from occurring, but it reduces cyber loss in a significant fashion. And again, like everything Diego said, all the insurance companies out there sort of realize this, and that's why it's being required as just to get a quote.
So continuing off of the insurance perspective then, what are the unique challenges that brokers are facing right now when it comes to selling cyber insurance? Larry, do you want to start off on that?
Yeah, that's also an excellent question. So really what I see are 3 big factors. Obviously, everybody who is selling cyber insurance right now sees tremendous market turbulence. Limits are being cut, rates are increasing. There's MGAs entering and exiting, MGAs losing capacity, including yours truly, and various changes are going on, which can be confusing to selling to your clients, saying, well, I've been loss free for 5 years. Why did my limit go down and my premium doubled? So that's that is a huge challenge. And then some historically terms and conditions, there's really no standardization in the cyberspace. We're getting better, getting closer to parity, but you have to understand what each and every carrier's forms looks like. And then, as we as the insurance industry gravitates towards some of these, high level security controls being in place, that often forces brokers and agents to all of a sudden act as a de facto technology agent. And really, as we all know, that's not my job. That's nobody on the phone's job to really be out explaining why these controls need to play. So it leads to a lot of confusion, and cyber becomes a relatively difficult line to place these days.
Diego?
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think that the just rampant influx of ransomware and successful ransomware attacks have really shook the insurance industry. A few things have happened that created a perfect storm for ransomware. And just to give a bit of context, so in 2021, it is expected that the cost of ransomware is going to be $20 billion worldwide. That's almost double what it was in 2019 at $11.5 billion. And in 2015, which is only 7 years ago, it was 375 million. So you're looking at a 57% increase in cost just because of this one type of attack. And so why is this happening? So if we take a step back and look at what has been happening in the cyberspace, in the past, cyber attacks were really targeted to large organizations. And those organizations had armies of sophisticated staff to counter the cyber attacks and to put security controls in place that will help keep their organization safe. But recently, there's been a lot more use and deployment of and financially effective cyber attacks like ransomware. And these attacks are indiscriminate and target not only large enterprises, but small and medium businesses alike. There's also been an ever-increasing number of high-profile attacks where there's large sums of monies that are being demanded. And so what you're seeing is that the need for cybersecurity controls is getting pushed down from these larger organizations to now the SMB market. And SMBs in the United States and Canada make up 40 to 50% of the GDP and employ between 60 and 70% of the workforce. And insurance companies have taken notice. I mean, they have the actual, they realize the actual reality of the coverage that they take. So they've begun to make some of these requirements mandatory. In the beginning of February at the RSA security conference, Microsoft stated it tracks more than 30 billion logins events per day and more than 1 billion monthly active users. And their engineers went on to say that 99.9% of compromised accounts that they tracked every month did not have MFA implemented. And that, again, the main source of compromise was using well-known passwords and using users' leaked credentials from another site. So, cybersecurity is bubbling up, and now the insurers want to validate that companies have the right measures in place. It's more difficult for brokers because they're not necessarily saddled with the tools and act as a go-between the clients and the carrier requirements with these IT security controls, which are largely brand new to them. So it is challenging for brokers now.
And Diego, along those lines, are you seeing it continuously be a challenge? Like ransomware, for lack of a better term, is continuing to be sort of a pandemic in the sense that it keeps evolving. So, one thing we're starting to see is, the demands and what we're looking and what is being compromised and what the, potential damage could be is changing significantly, which, obviously that has to be communicated too. And that's not, that's not always easy to do. Are you seeing that? Are you seeing, a level of sophistication from, the bad actors or the threat actors, keep rising as we go along?
Definitely. In fact, it gets a little bit worse than that. Since businesses are so dependent on the digital assets for their business function, those digital assets are accessible everywhere. Employees are also working more remotely. Supply chains are more interconnected. So there's a lot more targets for these type of attacks. And it's working. And so not only are you seeing that more attacks are happening, but you have some organizations, some savvy business hackers are actually creating platforms and allowing anybody to sort of purchase those attacks, so effectively selling it. And then so anyone can buy these ransomware attacks and then deploy it where they see fit. With cryptocurrency, which is another enabler, it makes it difficult to track where payments go. It makes it easier for the cyber criminals to conceal their identity and activities from law enforcement. So you're going to see not only are the attacks going to get more sophisticated, but that low-hanging fruit, there's going to just be a lot more accessibility to be able to execute those low-hanging fruit type attacks.
They also understand when in where cyber insurance is or is not in place. I understand that too, which is why it's important to encrypt your policy too when you buy coverage. That's just my shameless plug there.
So it sounds like the landscape is kind of constantly changing, and as you've mentioned, none of us on this call are necessarily tech experts. So all of that considered, how can brokers get help from partners elsewhere in the insurance space, and what should be considered when they're looking at a partner to work with? Larry, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll take that one. Well, that's kind of the premise of Dual going forward. Is it's not just to pontificate that certain requirements be in place. Is we actually partner with firms like Diego's to not only demonstrate why something is needed, but provide, like I said in the opening statement, a quick and easy solution to remedy that issue. So, this is specifically geared towards MFA, but the ultimate goal is when we take a whole analysis of your of insured's networks, and we look at everything and we discover vulnerabilities, not only pointing them out, but partnering with firms that can reasonably give them the means to patch those vulnerabilities. So really, that is something that I see is increasing on the insurance services side. So, that is one area. I encourage all brokers to look at their policies, look at what services are being offered, and really sort of take advantage of as many as you possibly can. I mean, a lot of them are free. A lot of carriers are deploying the eRisk Hub with a lot of different services, phishing scheme stuff, patching information, and so on and so forth. So really, I think the brokers have a great resource internally just by looking at their carrier partners to find these services.
Yeah, that's excellent. I mean, at Cyphercor, we've been watching cyber insurance very closely because so we've been in business for over 10 years, and traditionally, the reason why an organization would get multi-factor before, if you think 20 years ago, is because they are part of critical infrastructure. Say they're food producers, or maybe they are transportation, or organizations where you would think, yeah, they must have some type of cybersecurity controls because it's just important for society. And what we've been seeing over the course of the last, say, 10 years is more and more requirements for cybersecurity controls coming up from either self-regulation, so say from PCI compliance, so if you're handling credit card information, or perhaps from supply chain management. So if you want to work with a Walmart or a Amazon and you're part of their supply chain, they have all these cybersecurity controls in place. And now insurance companies have sort of taken up that cause because they own the actual reality of those of that coverage that they're making. So for us, it's very important to work with those kind of organizations. We've actually seen sort of three categories of insurance carriers reaction to the need for more cybersecurity controls. You have one team that is saying, okay, we're just going to get out of this altogether because we don't understand this space. Another is saying, we're going to increase the coverage as a stopgap until we figure this out. And then we have other leaders like Dual that are saying, we understand that everyone is going to need cyber insurance. The only way to properly give cyber insurance will be to have the right cyber controls in place. So we need to step up and see how we can bridge that gap between the requirement and then the client's actual IT infrastructure. So for Cyphercor, our goal is to demystify multi-factor authentication and to demonstrate to brokers and clients alike that it's a viable and deployable option in a short period of time in a cost-effective manner. MFA is all we do. So we believe all organizations should have access to seamless, user-friendly, secure, and well-supported multi-factor authentication. And that means building a solution that works anywhere there's a username and password, solving both the problem of security and user experience at the same time. So that's all we do. And in fact, to the point where we can actually get an organization up and running with multi-factor in under an hour.
So we'll leave them with this before heading into the Q&A. What are some main things you guys can tell brokers that they should look out for to recognize risk gaps in a client's cybersecurity control? A couple of main tips for them. Diego?
Sure. So one thing that Larry brings up in previous conversations, which I think is a really great point, is MFA all the access points. So thinking about MFA not just as like a checklist of, okay, I have MFA on email, so I must be done, or I turned it on for Office 365 and I must be done. An attacker will not think like that. It would be like if you have your house and you just put locks on your front doors, but you don't do anything with your windows. So so when you're thinking about where they may need it, think about anywhere there's really a username and password. In general, you'll find any time that an employee needs to access remotely, or when they need to unlock their machine, or if they need to access some sensitive information, they should really have multi-factor in place there. A good example that is now coming up, and this is a new thing, even in the early at MFA attestation forms, was really more email and remote access centric. There was not a lot of talk about privileged accounts, and privileged accounts are, think of those as like the administrator super users that can really do anything in a system. And the thinking was, well, I have to already be inside my company network, or I would have already done MFA to get into my company network. So why should I now use MFA to access a privileged account? Well, it would be the same as if you have this great alarm system in your house, but your safe is just left open. When a ransomware virus gets inside your network, if there's no MFA for the individuals, there's also going to be no MFA for that ransomware. So it's going to go and it will be able to log in if there's only password-based authentication. So thinking about MFA from a comprehensive standpoint and having the confidence that clients will be able to deploy MFA in those scenarios without disrupting their sort of day-to-day activities is what we hope to highlight with brokers.
Larry, anything to add?
Yeah, no, Diego said everything perfectly. It is really important. We've seen claims where we've gone back to the application, verified that the application stated that they had MFA in place. It just, was not complete MFA. They may have had a server somewhere else that had a password and that was unencrypted and stuff. So, that's really why we're here today, is to highlight this partnership. But what this partnership means is, it's a real resource to all the clients to go out there and really sort of evaluate what kind of MFA you're using, and are you using MFA properly? So.
Great, thank you guys so much. We do have a couple of questions from the audience. Just to everybody here, we do have a few minutes left. If you have anything you'd like to ask, please go ahead and send it into the Q&A section. So first off, we have, where do businesses struggle with regards to properly implementing and configuring MFA in their digital environments?
I can take that. So we've highlighted 6 reasons why businesses struggle. So the first one is that there's a concern of the unknown. Second, there's an unexpected changes to productivity and workflow. Third, what is the impact on my help desk? Everyone needs to log in every day, and as soon as I turn it on, is everybody going to call my help desk, which is already stretched and only has 2 or 3 people? What is going to happen to them? Fourth is, how will this impact my company policies? If now I'm requiring MFA and you have to have a smartphone, if I don't have a bring your own device policy, then do I now have to subsidize everyone's smartphone? Or so there's concerns. There's concerns about that. 5, what is the impact going to be on my legacy infrastructure? So I have some IT in place that nobody has touched in a few years, and the last person that touched it caused an outage. And so what is going to happen there? I know I'm going to need MFA on that as well, because it's part of my critical business infrastructure. And then finally, around the cost, whether is this going to be too costly? And so with each of those barriers, we try to raise awareness and sort of demonstrate that there is a good path to implement a sound, cost-effective multi-factor that won't impact your productivity, won't increase your help desk, and offers enough options to be able to navigate the wide variety of organization policies that we've seen.
Larry, anything to add?
Nope, nothing to add. He said it all perfectly. It's for me, it's always been when I've looked at SME businesses, it's always been, like Diego said, a resource issue and you know, the fear of what would happen. So no, said it perfectly.
Okay. How can insurers be better at evaluating an MFA program outside of a simple question like, do you have MFA enabled? Larry?
Yeah, we are, admittedly, as an industry as a whole, we are, you know, fairly, you know, deficient in asking the right questions. I mean, you know, like, look at all the things Diego just listed and the challenges businesses face, and when we talked about how, yeah, they could reasonably represent on an application that the MFA is enabled until it's not on this one particular server. So you know, that's part of why, again, that's part of why we're here today. You know, when you bind coverage, shameless plug for Dual and Cyphercor, when you bind coverage with us, you know, you will have immediate access to Diego's team. And, you know, really it can answer those questions. Am I deploying MFA the right way? I mean, just because you don't have it in place doesn't mean you shouldn't take advantage of a service like this. So I think as we, you know, gravitate more towards asking the, you know, gravitating more towards security controls in place, partnering with firms like this, we'll begin to get a better sense of, you know, what kinds of questions we should be asking. But I agree, we do fall short a little bit. It's usually a little checkbox and we move on. We do, on our particular supplementals, ask a little bit step further. Are all privileged accounts protected? Are your backups protected too? That, you know, that has been an area of strain in the insurance business. So we do ask those questions. So probing a little bit further, and obviously getting a consultation from Diego's team is the way I see we can better underwrite around that question.
Yeah, it's a great point.
And then I've got one more that has come in. Can you explain what some of the typical pain points that the clients might experience while deploying MFA?
Yeah, I mean, initially the first question we get is, you know, if I turn this on, you know, I have a company, I have 500 people. If I turn this on, are all 500 people going to have to be like enrolled and start using it right away? Like, that's impossible. And it's true, it is impossible. And so what we've developed is a way to actually test our solution in a production environment while only impacting the individuals you want to impact. But that's always a big question as to, like, what is the impact going to be? How are my users going to use this? What does my support desk need in order to support users? What if someone is locked out? You know, we have a VIP user that is giving a presentation in another state. They can't log in. What can they do? So all of this is really raising awareness of the solution, but there are a lot of common questions that come up when just the thought of, like, okay, I'm adding something so new, because everybody logs in, right? Everyone will log in maybe dozens of times a day, and so it's important to ask those questions.
All right, well, that is all of our questions that have come through, which is great because that is all of our time. If anyone here does have any questions following the webinar, please feel free to send them over to us via email. But thank you guys both so much. This has been great. I know I've taken away a lot, mainly that I should be using more than one password. But I really appreciate you both taking the time today.
Thank you. Thanks to Diego. Thank you, Emily. And thanks for having us, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Really appreciate everyone being here. Thank you, Emily, and thank you, Larry.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.